With each pass of the clippers through her hair, Isabella's long locks fell to the ground, scattered like remnants of her former self. The air was filled with the sound of buzzing, the occasional snip of the blades, and the palpable tension that hung heavy in the room. The man's sadistic pleasure grew with each strand he severed, his grip on the clippers tightening as he continued his degrading task. Through the haze of vulnerability and humiliation, Isabella found solace in her unwavering spirit. She refused to let them witness her despair, for within her, a flicker of defiance burned bright. As her once luscious hair diminished, she held on to her inner strength, knowing that her identity extended far beyond the physicality they sought to strip away. The man's camera snapped pictures relentlessly, capturing the transformation from the moment Isabella's hair began to fall. He reveled in the power he held, creating a film that would perpetuate her suffering. Yet even through her anguish, Isabella remained steadfast, her spirit unyielding. As the last remnants of her hair were shorn away, leaving her bald and vulnerable, Isabella took a deep breath, her eyes flickering open. As Isabella rose from the seat, her newly shorn head feeling exposed and vulnerable, the man's sadistic commands continued without remorse. He coldly ordered her to clean the fallen strands of hair from the floor, as if her degradation wasn't enough. Isabella's heart sank, but she refused to let her spirit waver. The man, relishing in his control and the spectacle he was creating, turned to the camera, a sickening grin stretching across his face. "What do you think, my friends?" he asked, his voice dripping with malice. Bald and beautiful, Isabella's heart raced, her breath catching in her throat. The thought of being objectified and paraded before an audience filled her with a sense of indignation. But she knew that resistance at this moment would only further fuel their perverse pleasure. She had to endure, to find strength within herself amidst this dehumanizing ordeal. The second man, with a twisted delight, approached Isabella, armed with a selection of makeup and a tube of bold red lipstick. He forced her to sit once again, his touch rough and invasive. As he applied makeup to her face, his actions were harsh and impersonal, emphasizing the cruelty of their intent. Isabella's eyes welled with tears, her face a canvas for their sick fantasies. The makeup transformed her appearance, accentuating her vulnerability and juxtaposing it with a stark defiance burning in her eyes. The bright red lipstick stained her lips, a stark reminder of the power they held over her physicality. With a malicious glee, the men ordered Isabella to smile, their demand laced with a sternness that brooked no defiance. She forced her lips into a trembling smile, her eyes betraying a mixture of pain, resilience, and an unwavering spirit that refused to be broken. Deep down, Isabella knew that this facade of compliance was a necessary survival tactic. Though they sought to humiliate her, she refused to grant them the satisfaction of witnessing her complete surrender. She held on to her inner strength, knowing that her true beauty lay not in her physical appearance, but in the unyielding spirit that burned within her. As the camera continued to record, capturing every moment of her transformation, Isabella's heart longed for the day when she could reclaim her autonomy and rise above the torment they had subjected her to. But for now, she would play their game, hiding her true self behind a mask of forced compliance, biding her time until the moment she could break free from their clutches and emerge stronger than ever. After what felt like an eternity, the men finally concluded their sinister production, collecting their belongings and meticulously documenting every step along the way. Hours had passed, and Isabella's spirit had been tested relentlessly, yet she remained resilient, determined to preserve her inner strength. With a cruel glint in their eyes, the men devised one final act of humiliation, forcing Isabella to perform a specific movement. Uncaring of her emotional and physical exhaustion, they demanded her compliance. Isabella's body ached, her spirit weary, but they held the power in this twisted game, and she had no choice but to follow their commands. Reluctantly, Isabella obeyed, her movements a poignant reminder of the captivity she found herself in, her every action captured by the camera that documented her torment. As she performed the demanded movement, her heart heavy with a mixture of anger, fear, and resignation, Isabella's thoughts turned to a future where she would break free from this torment. She clung to the flicker of hope within her, knowing that one day she would reclaim her agency and rise above the darkness that engulfed her. In the face of their demands, Isabella made a silent promise to herself. She vowed to remember every moment of her suffering, every act of degradation inflicted upon her, for it was these memories that would fuel her determination to seek justice, to expose the shearer's heinous acts, and ensure that no one else would fall victim to their cruelty. With a final click of the camera, capturing the last remnants of her shattered dignity, the men seemed satisfied with their macabre creation. They reveled in the power they held over Isabella, relishing in the destruction they had wrought upon her sense of self. But little did they know, within Isabella's spirit, a flame of resilience burned brighter than ever. As the men gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, their sadistic presence still lingered in the air. With a chilling warning, they threatened Isabella, their voices dripping with malice and control. If you dare go to the police, confide in your friends, or seek help from anyone, we will unleash the photos and videos that we have captured, and you will pay a hefty price of $1,000 every month. Isabella's heart sank at their menacing words, the weight of their threat pressing upon her. She understood the power they held over her, the potential for them to ruin her life, to strip her of any semblance of control. Fear coursed through her veins, but a flicker of defiance remained within her spirit. Though the thought of paying such a sum seemed insurmountable, Isabella knew she couldn't succumb to their demands. She couldn't allow fear to dictate her actions any longer. She had endured their torment, and she refused to let them continue to hold sway over her life. With a quiet determination, Isabella met their gaze, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "I will not be silenced by your threats. I refuse to live in the shadow of your cruelty any longer. I will find the strength to overcome your control, and I will seek justice for the torment you have inflicted upon me." The men sneered, their amusement evident as they took in her defiance. They had expected her to cower in fear, to submit to their demands without question. But Isabella's unwavering spirit proved to be a thorn in their side, a reminder that their power was not absolute. With one final, menacing glance, the men turned and left, their steps echoing through the room as they retreated into the darkness from which they emerged. Isabella was left alone, the weight of their threat heavy upon her shoulders. But instead of succumbing to despair, she resolved to fight, to seek help, and to reclaim her life from the clutches of these monsters. With her heart pounding and tears streaming down her face, Isabella wasted no time after the gang's departure. Overwhelmed by the weight of what she had endured, she summoned every ounce of courage within her and hurried to the nearest police station. Arriving at the station, her trembling hands clutching onto the edges of her coat, Isabella approached the front desk, her voice choked with emotion as she recounted the horrifying events that had unfolded. The words spilled out in a torrent of anguish and fear, each sentence punctuated by sobs that seemed to echo through the room. The officers, their expressions a mix of concern and determination, listened attentively as Isabella shared her harrowing experience. The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the sound of her quivering voice recounting the torment she had endured. With a gentle reassurance, One of the officers offered Isabella a tissue, understanding the depth of her vulnerability and the strength it took for her to come forward. They assured her that they would do everything in their power to bring those responsible to justice, to ensure that no one else would suffer at their hands. As Isabella continued to pour out her pain and fear, the officers diligently took notes, capturing every detail that she provided. They asked her questions, seeking to gather any evidence that could aid their investigation, their commitment to her safety evident in their every action. Throughout her conversation with the police, Isabella felt a glimmer of hope ignite within her.